Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning if you're in Australia, and good evening if you're in parts of Europe. The time zones are all over the place. I'm just saying hi to a few people that are watching. We've got John watching, Richard's watching, Hi-Fi Energy Research is there, Mike's there, David's here, Oreo's here, Keith's here. We've got stacks actually that are watching from all over the world at the moment, so which is a really great thing. I love doing these live shows to get back in contact with you all. I was just saying in the pre-show that it's a nice and cold day here today in Melbourne. It's around 13 degrees at the moment Celsius. Which is around 50 odd degrees Fahrenheit, so it's pretty cold. All the American people and European people are telling me how warm it is. I've been a bit jealous. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is obviously the news and everything that we've gone through, but I also want to talk to you about, because I've had a couple of people ask about the series that I'm shooting about business and stuff like that, and I was going to continue that 2 weeks ago, but I've been flat out. Unlike a lot of YouTube reviewers who are just full-time YouTubers, I'm actually running a full-time business, so unfortunately my business has to come first, so I had to put a stop to it at that stage. I'm hoping to get back onto it all again next week. I keep getting shoots sort of brought in and different things, or people asking me to do prints and everything else, and also catching up on wedding albums for weddings. So I had to put a stop to that. I've still posted a few videos that I already have prepared that I've shot recently, but they're the only ones that I've done, so I haven't done any live broadcasts apart from the regular live show, which is what I'll do every week at this time. But I just wanted to let everyone know that that series is still going to go ahead, and hopefully I can get back onto doing some of it next week. But I just wanted to talk to you about that. Hi Chad, how are you, mate? Good to see you here as well. So let's get on to news, because I've got a stack of stuff to actually talk to you about today, because there's some really interesting things. But I wanted to sort of talk to you about this, because I know a lot of you out there are using Godox for your flashes. They're a Chinese, I think they're a Chinese mob that is making flashes for basically every system now. But I've noticed now that they're saying that they've quietly launched a cross-brand TTL and a HSS on all of their lights. So what they're saying is that when you update the firmware on those systems, that it automatically will pick up. And you can see here that it actually says, just let me hide this news, it actually says Fuji on the area around the flash there. So it's meant to pick up what flash system's being used, as long as the transmitter is the correct one for your camera. So it means that all of your their light systems are basically cross-platform, and I notice they're saying now that they've got Fuji, Olympus, Panasonic, etc. And I know that we had a discussion about this in the last live show, because I wasn't quite aware that you could shoot TTL and HSS off the A6 500 series, so I may have to look at getting one of these systems for myself. So I know some of you can comment in the chat, but after this has been put online, if you could comment in the questions down below which Godox system you'd recommend me to get for my A6 500, because I may get one so that I can do some HSS and TTL. I've been using the Sony cameras, and I probably can use that in TTL. I actually should check it. Because it may work with the Photics, and I haven't used that yet, so I probably should give that a go and see if that works. I've only been using my Profoto gear, and that won't work with HSS or TTL, so I'll have to try the Photics and see if that works. But put down below, not in the questions here because this isn't saved with it, but put down below in the questions later on what you'd recommend me look at as a good Godox system for the A6 300 and A6 500 system, because I'd be interested to know. And I've noticed a lot of you are saying up there already that you use Godox, and they are Chinese, yes, and they seem to be like they make fairly good stuff, which you know, it seems to be a good thing. I know a lot of you out there are using that AD200, and I've seen a stack of that sold or discussed as well, and it's also renamed as Flashpoint Evolve. So, you know, like this usual, they're always renaming all their gear and putting everything else up as well. So let me know what you think about that, guys, because I am curious to know. Like I said, I've never used the Godox systems. And again, I'll put these links in the descriptions down below so you can get these and read the discussions that it's sort of talking about. But yeah, they're saying that they're totally cross-platform with all the other systems, and that's the one, this AD200, I've seen a number of people actually use. Again, if you wanted to overpower the sun with that, you'd have to get extremely close to the subject, because I don't think it's going to have enough to really overpower the sun unless you got really, really close. That's why I love the bigger units, because I can use HSS and overpower the sun, and you need probably 500 kilowatts to do that. So they may not be strong enough to do that, but just for a general runaround flash that's very quick to set up using TTL and HSS, it could be a great solution. So let me know how many of you using this AD200 too, or whether you think it's a better option to go for more of just the flash as well. And like I said, I will try the Photix Odin that I've got the system and see if that works on the A6500. So that's the first thing that I wanted to discuss with you. Let me just go up and see if a couple of people are saying about this. Hi-Fi Energy Research said Godox XT1 trigger for Sony. Mike has said, apart from using the X1TS trigger, every speedlight and monolight can control the other flashes. Hi-Fi Energy Research said works with all their speedlights and Flashpoint Explorer and Godox monolights. So the stacks of people chiming in here. This is the good part if you're in the live discussion, because everyone's having a chat about what's going on as well. Hi-Fi Energy said Flashpoint Explorer to overpower the sun. So there's stacks of stuff going on there. All right, now this is really interesting because I found this the other day. This is a Venus Optics. Now this is really cool because if you're into wide angle, this is the lower converter, but basically it's saying that you can use it with their lower, I think it's a 12, it's a 12 millimeter 2.8 lens. And the reason why you'd want to use this is because if you look down here, the image on the left is using your conventional wide angle, and you can see what happens is, I'm just going to bring up this desk scribble so I can actually show you what goes on here, because it's really an interesting thing. See what happens with your buildings? They get this weird perspective going on, and it's because you're using a real wide angle lens, and that can be, well, sometimes it can look quite interesting and quite good, but other times it doesn't. The great part about using one of these tilt shift lenses is that you get the image that's on the right, where now the buildings are actually quite straight, and it works by tilting your lens up and down. So this is a great system, and I've been seriously thinking about getting a wide angle lens. And I'm not sure, let me know if anyone's using this lens, because you might be able to let me know how good this lens actually is. But it's just like an adapter, so you'll just screw this in, and then the lens actually goes into that adapter. And like I said, I'll put the links for this in as well, so you can sort of see how it works. They're saying that the Sony shipments will start late July, so it should be fairly soon, but this will support the Nikon and also Canon as well, and it's $300. I suppose that'd be US, and I'm not sure if it shows anything else. It just shows the adapter actually on the camera there as well. Now there will be a video that you can play that you could sort of see how it works. I'm not going to show that, but you can sort of see here there's images where you can see what's happening even with this one in the middle, where you're getting that tilting into the center, and the one down the bottom. If you shoot extremely wide like these angles do, and you're close to these objects or whatever, these buildings or whatever, they will start to really tilt in. So if you're doing real estate, this could be an amazing lens to do. And I'd love actually to get a tilt shift lens. It can even help sometimes doing portraits, because if you are shooting with wide angle, and I do that to get environments, if you're shooting with them, you can actually get, the model can be sort of distorted, and if you get this, you won't have her looking like she's got really long legs or a really long body. Just let me have a quick drink. So yeah, let me know what you think about this, guys. Let me know whether you think that it's a worthwhile investment to do, or whether any of you are using tilt shift lenses, but it looks like it's going to be a really good solution. But yeah, I'll put this link up in the description so you can see it as well. And let me know if anyone does get it, but obviously you can only pre-order it at the moment, and it will be available as well. Another thing I wanted to sort of discuss with you was this was a great review that I read about the Sony A9. This is Kari Bellamy. I think Kari would be female, but she was a Nikon shooter, or Nikon, and she was using the D4s. What she's saying, even however, I felt the D5 would be a bit more of the same. Yeah, well, she was shooting with D4s, and she was considering, I believe, going up to D5s, but she's actually making the switch, reading this article, going to the A9 series, and she shot a whole wedding with this, and her images are really nice. But again, I'm not going to take you through the whole lot, but I'll just show you some of the images that she actually shot. But she gives a really good description of how it compares to using her Nikon system. And she looks like she's going to be changing over, and she's talking about, holy shit, that viewfinder, once she started to use the viewfinder. That's one of the main things that I noticed when I went from the Nikon to the Sony. The viewfinder just blows you away, and I couldn't go back now after using that electronic viewfinder. So it is one of the real main things about going over to see what you're getting in the actual screen like that, with all the detail information there. If you want it, your histograms, everything else in that screen is a game changer. And she's clearly found that too. And she's taken a whole series of images and talks about the autofocus, the custom buttons and things like that, focus peaking that obviously she couldn't use before, the electronic shutter, how that was really good in situations. I'm dying to try this out, this 1/32,000th of a second. I may try that when I go to the snow shoot in a couple of weeks, because I'd like to try and do some natural light shots, and having that ability to use shallow depth of field with 1/32,000th of a second could be an amazing thing, and even in weddings. But like I said, our wedding season at the moment is very quiet because we're middle of winter, but I will use it in the model shoots that I'm doing over the next couple of weeks. But her work looks really quite nice. So like I said, I'll leave this in the description box down below, and you can check this out later on, so if you did want to read it yourself. She talks about battery life, how it's actually really good, and I think Sony obviously have really underrated it. The dynamic range she talks about, and I had a discussion about this too a few weeks ago with you about the dynamic range. It's not quite as good as the A7R II, but it's still very, very good, and it's clearly workable for what I'm using it for. She talks about the size reduction and how that's helped her, and then she just gives an example of her D4 cameras against her A9. You can see the massive size difference there. Even when you're putting on large lenses, there's still a massive difference. I have bought the battery grip at the bottom. I'm not sure whether I'll use it yet, but I have got it. And again, she's just showing it against the D750. Not such a massive difference there. And again, she just takes you through all the things. She also takes you through the downsides of it. The menu system, we hear that so many times. I don't find the menu so bad, to be honest, especially now that I can put my favourites in that favourites section on the A9. I'm really quite happy with that. She's talking about the dual card systems, how that they're separate, different card types, on and off camera flash. She's saying that the Nikon flash system was better, and it responds quicker. And she's got the same flash as me, and I really haven't noticed that much difference. The only thing I did notice was that obviously the Nikon system let me have the flashing ability, that the infrared comes out of the flash, which did make a big difference in low light scenario. So I wish Sony could have enabled that. And again, I won't go any further, but I'll just say the verdict. She said that this is the future of photography, plain and simple. The Sony has few places that it still needs to improve a bit, but at the current rate of product development, I'm sure they're not far away. So she's clearly making a switch over to Sony by the sounds of it. So yeah, so have a look at that article anyway. So that's that one. I also put up another great article in here, because if you're interested to see how Sony actually make their A7R II, like I said, I'll put this in the links as well. You can watch this video and watch it actually being made, and it's quite amazing. I was actually really surprised how much hands-on there is in putting this camera together. I thought it would have been more robotic, but it's actually not. A lot of it is done by hand, and very intricate work as well. So yeah, check that out. It's so good. Let me just go back, and I'm going to have a look at some of these questions just to see what people are saying. Keith is saying, try the 8200, David. And And now that Godox released the Flashpoint Evolve twin head to use two AD200s, Oreo said, that's great. HHS is a key factor for me to buy the AD600. What else have people said? Oreo said, oh no, Mike said the menus are bad, David, and what's especially bad is that the menu points are at different positions on different models. Yeah, that's true, actually. They are on different models. It can drive you a little bit nuts once you try to sort of shoot between them all the time. I'm hoping that they all tend to go down to the A9 way. The only thing I can't understand is why Sony don't allow you to use touchscreen on those menus. I so wish that you could just, touch it, because the screen obviously is probably capable of doing it, but they just don't do it for some reason. I mean, Sony make mobile phones, so they're used to using a touch interface, so I'm hoping that changes. I found the menu system on the A9 particularly is pretty good, but I'm so used to the menu now that I don't really have any issues with them. But that's just me, but they're clearly not as good as, say, using something like a GH5, something like that, or the Fuji systems. Casper said hello. So hello, Casper. How are you, mate? Nice to see you here. Let's go to the next news article. Now, this is quite interesting because Nikon have actually confirmed that they're building a mirrorless camera. Now, I'm not certain how this is going to be. Now, are they going to do a full-frame version of this, which will take sales away from their full-frame cameras, or are they going to make this a DX model? It's going to be interesting to see which way they go, and who are they actually going to get their sensors from? Because Sony, I don't think Sony are going to give Nikon their high-end sensors like what are used in the A7R2 and the A9. So it's going to be interesting because Sony at the moment are keeping their high-end sensors for themselves for the initial release anyway. So I'm not quite certain how Nikon are going to sort of produce this, and will this work with their current lenses? That's another really big thing too, because they've not been able to, even with the Sony system, no one's been able to come up with a decent adapter that will autofocus really, really well. So, are their lenses going to work really, really well on their system? These are all things that we sort of haven't been answered yet. And I mean, it's easy for Nikon to say that they're going to do this amazing camera, and they do say it, if you read down here, that he's actually saying, I think, in one of the articles that we're developing a new mirrorless products that build on Nikon's strengths and offer the performance perspective customers expect, including ultimate optic performance, image processing technologies, strength and durability in operation. But it's easier to say that, but they've got to deliver. But clearly, they have to produce something. This is where I think too Canon may have a little bit of an advantage because their lenses their lenses will work automatically in the system. But the Nikon lenses, the way they're built, there's issues. That's why clearly that we've had such issues with Sony being able to get the Nikon glass to work effectively with autofocus. But let me know what you guys think about that too. Micah said yawn. Keith has said, I want Nikon full-frame mirrorless sensor, and Micah said, I guess it will just be as sophisticated as the M5, and that's the interesting thing that we're actually going to have to see. Are their first versions of this going to be, not that good? And, I mean, probably by the time this comes out, you're going to have the A10 or the A6 700s or whatever will be out, and they're going to be a step ahead again. So I'm not quite certain whether they've left this run too late. They really should have seen the writing on the wall a long time ago and done something about this, a couple of years ago, really. But they're doing it, I suppose, and we'll just have to wait and see what people are saying. Now, the next thing I wanted to sort of talk about was just this, because I know a lot of you are saying that Lightroom is slow, and I just want you to have a think about this, because Adobe have actually admitted that Lightroom is slow. And they're saying that speeding it up is its top priority. And there is something that you can feel. If you go to this site, like I said, I'll link this below. But if you go to this site, you can actually fill in this survey, which hopefully will help them understand what the problems are. And I've noticed too, it has slowed down a hell of a lot over the last 12 months. And sometimes it really is slowing me down in my workflow, so it's an issue. I mean, at the moment there's nothing better I don't think that I can use, so it's an issue for me, and I really do think they perhaps they need to rewrite the whole code for this program. It's been around a long time, so I'm not sure whether how much it can be fixed unless they rewrite the code to it completely. But like I said, let me know how you're finding Lightroom and if you found any other solutions. Because I'd be curious to know as well whether you think it's slowed down for you. It definitely has slowed down for me, and it struggles a little bit now with the A7R2, and I've got a beast of a Mac computer that I'm using it on. So yeah, just let me know what you think. So I just wanted to share that with you as well. Now I'm going to go back up to questions up here, so let's have a look what some people are saying. Yeah, I heard that. Someone's saying about the recall of the D750. They're actually recalling it because there's a shutter problem. So if you've got that camera, I think it's within a certain serial number range, you can actually take it back and they'll replace it. So again, they're having issues with their shutters, which I had to send my D600 back when I had that because that had the oil problem, which was spurting oil onto the sensor, and I had to send that back to get replaced, which is a real pain because you lose your camera for a while. Hi-Fi Energy said Capture One Pro is amazing and very fast compared to Lightroom. Yeah, it is. The only thing wrong with those other programs, I've never found anything like Lightroom that has the cataloging like Lightroom has. So that's an issue for me that, you know, that I'm not sure those other programs work as well in cataloging. So, you know, let me know what you guys think about these other programs, or whether you think they catalog as well as Lightroom has. I used to use Aperture, which is a Mac program. That got discontinued, obviously, and then I had to switch over to Lightroom. But now I'm sort of heavily invested in Lightroom and Photoshop. But, you know, I would switch if there was something that was much better that cataloged as well as what Lightroom does, but I haven't found anything so far. Capture One lacks green fringing correction, and a couple of other super useful sliders such as dehaze and vibrance. And I do use those, Oreo, all the time. That's what someone's commenting on the actual things there. So let's go over to what's in my bag, because I want to show you a couple of interesting things with, let me just have a drink. With, I like to show sometimes the unusual things that I carry in my camera bag. And that's why I wanted to sort of show you this, because you'll think, oh yeah, I've never thought about that, but it's a really interesting thing. So what I'm going to do is show you these two devices, and the first one I'm going to show you is this, because you might think, well, God, I'd never use it, but this little device, which I just bought from a hardware store. Now, you can go and buy these in camera shops, and they're incredibly expensive. I just buy them in local hardware store, and in Australia, we have Bunnings. In the US, you'd have the similar type of store, things like that. But where I use this is often on girls' gowns, because I'm doing so many modelling shoots, often I'll really want the dress that they wear to give a nice shape. And sometimes I'm supplying the dress, or sometimes it's designers supplying the dress. And sometimes the girls, if they're a slim girl particularly, the dress looks just too big on her. And I'm using a few of these. Sometimes I've got 4 or 5 of these on the dress at the back. And all I do is I just clamp it onto the actual article. Like I'll be pulling the article tight, and then I'll clamp it. And then it's basically making the clothes tight around the girl. Now, it doesn't matter because it's all at the back. So these are things that I'll always carry in my camera bag, just in case if I'm in that scenario. Plus, sometimes I just need them to use as grip things, things like that. But this is a great little tool, and I've got different sizes of these that I use in the studio. I've got quite large ones to hold bigger things, stuff like that. But these really small ones are really, really good for things like clothes, stuff like that. So, you know, have a look around and see, and always keep some of these in your gear bag, because they're incredibly useful. I've even used these on wedding dresses where a bride had an issue, and for the photos, I could use this to get beautiful photos as well. So they can be really good in an emergency. So that's the first thing that I wanted to show you. This is the second thing, which also I love. This little device is a clamp. Now, I did buy this from a camera store. I can't even remember what the name of this is, but it has your typical adapter from the end here. Now, I usually use this with off-camera flash. If I'm in an area where I want to put a flash up really, really high, I'll actually clamp it to something, like it could be a light stand, or it could be a stand that the speakers are connected to in the reception hall. The flash is then screwed into this top part, and I can just leave it and use that too. So this is another incredibly useful device. You can even hang a camera from this. I've put my GoPro from this sometimes if I wanted to do time lapse. Things like that, you know, and you can hang it from curtain rails, you can hang it from anything. So it's another really, really good device that you can have that you may not think about using, but it's a great article to have in your kit. And I've got a couple of these. I usually don't carry two, but I will usually carry one. But again, I just thought I'd show you a couple of things that are different that I do carry in my camera bag. So yeah, I mean, they're cool. Let me know what you think about those. Let me know if you have any really interesting, you know, weird sort of ideas, because it might be something that I haven't thought about. Put them in the descriptions down below, and you know, it might give me an idea about some things that I can show other people too later on. But, you know, a couple of great devices, dirt cheap. This one wasn't that cheap though, because I bought this from a camera shop and it's incredibly strong. But these were only a couple of dollars from a hardware store, and you know, they're so good. Yeah, so let me know about that. A couple of people are saying that they've got those. I'm still getting stacks of people talking about the Godox flashes, which is good. And like I said, guys, let me know in the questions down below later on so that other people can get those and I can get them, because once I quit this video, all the live chat's gone. So yeah, I'd appreciate some of that stuff going in the questions down below. Mike has said the large ones are perfect to fix reflectors to trees or brushes. Yes, they are, Mike, and I've used that often as well for holding reflectors. If I'm working on my own, I can use that to work as well. Oreo said, I have those black clamps, but without the flash adapter, unfortunately. I know that is such a good little adapter on there that, you know, is amazing. And like I said, I've used that for so much stuff. It's really, really good. All right, so let's go to a shoot, because I want to take you through a recent shoot that I've done. Now, I'm going to take you through Melbourne. So this is a shoot through Melbourne. Now, one of the most amazing things about Melbourne is the laneways that Melbourne has, and this is one thing that I adore about shooting around Melbourne, because it has all these amazing laneways that you can legally paint. They get all the artists come in, the graffiti artists, and then they'll paint the lane. This is called Hosier Lane in Melbourne, and there's restaurants that are all down here as well. And this little area over the back over here is Fed Square, which is another amazing area as well, which I'll probably show you one day shooting around that location as well. But what I've done here, like usual, because I was using flash, and I have used the Profoto, but you wouldn't need to be using the Profoto, you could use any flash system here. But I did expose for this ambient in this background here, because I didn't want to blow that out. I wanted to show that detail that's in that background, and also this light that's over this area here, because I wanted to sort of keep that look about it. Even though I could have taken out this sort of sign, this is street photography, or fashion street photography, so I'm keeping it all in. Even the bike in the background, there's rubbish that's sort of there. I don't want to get rid of any of this, because it's meant to be this environmental street type portraiture work. So that's what I love, and Mike has said they love urban atmosphere, and I do too, Mike, and that's why I love these type of shoots. How this was shot was, like I said, it's shot at 1/200th of a second. It's f4 and ISO 800. It's shot with the 70-200 f4. So I'm not using my prime lenses in this case. And it's shot at 109 millimeters. Now you can see she's backlit. Now she's backlit from the natural light that was streaming in from the back here. So that's what's giving her this light on her hair, and also sort of that area through here. So you can see how she's got that. Now I deliberately stuck her where I could see that backlighting actually hit, and that's one thing with these that you've got to try and do. Oh, thank you so much, Delta Dave. He gave me a birthday donation. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I'm glad you actually joined us here as well. Hi Johnny too. Johnny 8000 has joined us as well. So that's a lovely backlighting, and you can see it's given her a little bit of separation on her hair as well. So it has separated her from there. But where this is lit is off camera over here. I've got the Profoto on a light stand, and it's using that same reflector that I usually use, which is the 2-foot octa with the grid on it, because I didn't want this area to be lit up again. Remember, light is all about direction. So it's very, very important that you give direction to it, and I don't want it to look like it's really had flash involved in it. And you can see that the light has come through this section through here and lit her up. But you can see the fall off, because if you look at the fall off, you can see it through here and also on her leg and stuff like that. So you can see where the fall off has hit on her leg there as well. So that's given her that nice shape that she's got. Now I've just made sure that I've matched the exposure that I'm getting through this background onto her face, and also the legs through here. So that's basically what I've done with this shot. And just to show you another one, because I'll give you another example, you can see this is the second one that I've done. Again, it's shot exactly the same way. I've done the exact same lighting pattern here. And again, I've exposed or I've lifted her head up just a little bit to give that sort of look on her face. And again, it's got that real grungy type look as well. You know, and I just adore these type looks. You can see all the shoes that are sprawled across the area here. Now, that often is a sign of drugs, but it's not in Melbourne in that laneway anyway. This is far too busy for that. I mean, this is incredibly busy, and people walk down here all the time. I had to do this shoot around about 7 o'clock in the morning because any later, and this laneway is full of brides, it's full of shoots, it's nuts. So you do have to get here really, really early, and that's why there's no people actually in this laneway at the time. So, you know, but I just love this location, and we'll keep moving on because there's so many of these that I want to show you here. Here's another one that was shot. Someone just said, Mike said spill is the real problem with powerful monolights, and it is, Mike, and you're right, and that's why you've got to use grids on your lighting. If you don't use grids on your lighting here, you will get spill, and it will spoil the whole thing, because I hate it when I see that telltale sign of the ground being lit up. Because it's just not right in this scenario. It's okay if you're trying to get that look, but I didn't want that look in this case. So, you know, I actually wanted to keep that so that it looks like she's lit naturally. And again, she was just lit the same way. This is the same 1/200th of a second f4 ISO 800. I've zoomed the lens in a little bit more though, so it's added a bit more compression, and it's given the nice bokeh in the lights in the background through here, if you see that. I've desaturated this quite a bit though, so it is a lot more desaturated than what the other images were. But that was a personal choice, and it's just the look that I wanted to get with her, because she was wearing this black and white type outfit. And again, you can see that lovely fall off that gives her shape on the side of her face and even the side of her body there and the legs. Don't forget, guys, you need to get that shadow to give that shape. If you don't get the shadow and you're not shooting like that, you'll get a very flat look. And if you look at it closely, you can see there's a shadow on her nose coming through there. And like I said, I'm not worried about that. That doesn't bother me in the slightest. I could have taken that out if I wanted to, but I want these to be more of that grungy type, hard edge look that I love, which is that sort of fashionistic type look as well. If we go on to the next one, this one was a similar shot, except I've now gone to nearly 200 millimeters. I've shot this at 186 mil. Again, all the settings were the same. Because I'm shooting manual, I didn't have to change any of my settings here. And that's one of the great parts about shooting in manual. That's why, guys, when you're shooting and you're using TTL, use TTL to get your original exposure. Turn that off then and go manual, because then nothing will change. If you go TTL and I move back and forth or whatever, the whole lot can change, and that can be an issue if I'm moving backwards and forwards really, really quickly. So this still has exactly the same settings because I'm shooting manual. The only thing I've changed is my zoom. And again, you can see that lovely fall off that's happening through her face through here. If I didn't have that, you know, it would look not too flat. And also you can sort of see that she's got that lovely rim on her hair, and that's coming from the light that's above her just the natural light that's coming through that laneway that's actually filtering down. Let me just go up and have a look at what some people are saying. Mike said just nice shot, too much to the left. And again, Mike, yeah, I agree. Look, everyone sees different things with these. Keith said, wow, David, love your work. Thanks, Keith. Hi-Fi Energy Research said, nice. Keith said, thank you, but just find out that that they're talking about the TTL. You'll have to read that, guys, on the live chat. Mike said, in these scenarios, I usually put a speed light behind the model for hair light and rim light for the body contours. And I could have done that too, Mike, but because there was such nice strong lighting coming from the top and behind, I didn't have to in this case. Sometimes I do that in the shots that I actually use, especially with brides. I do that quite often. That's about it. So we'll keep going. This is another one that I actually did, and I love this. This is another part of this laneway that was shot. And it's got these beautiful stairs that are sort of coming up that gives you that grungy light, and it's got a light that's sort of streaming off into this area, coming down here. And again, I've got a flash which is just off the camera, sort of on this side. And again, you'd have to be really careful because that lane was quite dark. If I hadn't used that diffuser, that grid, this would have all been lit up. So again, I'm just lighting her up through here. Now you can see it's quite harsh lighting, and again, that is the look that I'm after here. It may not be for everyone's taste, but I love that really high, contrasty type look, especially when you're dealing with grungy type looks. I really like that look, and that's me just down to a key. I'll zoom up a little bit so that you can see how that is quite hard in the lighting itself. I love the bit of movement too that I got her to do too here with her this jumper. It just adds that little bit of movement as well, which I really like. I think it adds something to that image rather than it just being static. So she was just sort of moving it back and forth. And it's just basically a nice image. I also do a lot of dancing work down there, and that's why I got one of the girls to do this sort of setup. She actually leaned against this wall, so she put her ballerina gear on and just leaned against this wall, and I adore this shot. I think this is just a beautiful shot. I think it's stunning, actually. And again, the flash in this case has been brought out to this side, so it's still on that side over here, and you can sort of see that the light is hitting her there, and it's given her that lovely fall off that she's getting on her leg through that area as well. And I just adore these type of shots. And even though she's in this dancing, I call this one waiting, and it looks like she's waiting to sort of go on stage, and she's just sort of out the back, just sort of sitting there waiting. And like I said, I just adore this. And again, the critical thing here is that you have to expose for these highlights. You would not want to lose those highlights in the dress because that's where all that detail is. So that's so important that you don't blow those out. So remember that all the time, the shadows and your highlights. Yes, this is an alley, Ben. We call them laneways here in Melbourne, but it is an alley, yep. Again, if we move on to another location down that alley or laneway, I've just got them girls sitting on these bins that are sort of sitting there. Now, it's complete colour overload, but I love it because I love the contrast of her white top and white skin against this crazy background that you're sort of seeing here. So again, I expose for that ambient. So, I've actually exposed for all of this area here, which is quite dark. So I've allowed that to not fill in, and that's what I was looking at because I wanted detail in that lens. So... and again, then I've added the fill light. The flash was actually over this section over here. You can see that by the fall off actually on her face. Someone has just said, Dave, have you ever thought about trading your 70 to 200 f4 for the 2.8? No, I haven't, Stuart, because I don't need it. Look, to be honest, if you look at these images alone, I think that lens is incredibly sharp for what it is. It's so light compared to the 2.8 version. I just don't want to be lugging around these massive lenses anymore. And I've found the f4 version is ample for what I'm shooting at. I may just have to crank up the ISO a little bit, but it's not really any big deal. But I've found that lens is really a beautiful lens, actually, the f4. you know, and again, I've highlighted for make sure you don't blow out the detail on this beautiful white area and also the face and the white of the eyes. But the colour in that alone is really lovely, and I just love the way she's sitting down in that bin. You know, and it's important. Just remember too to always check feet, guys. Make sure they're sort of pointing that way, you know, not looking a little bit awkward. So make sure when you're doing this that you're really conscious of where the feet go. And I did spend a little bit of time sort of organising that through the feet there. This next one is a similar thing. It's just a different girl sitting on the bin again. This is more like a casual type shot, but again, I love the way that it looks. And again, you can see the fall off of the flash sitting through a hair through here and on the side there. So you can see the direction of the flash is coming over in this direction. And again, I've metered for the background and then just added the fill to have her light up. Because if I didn't have her lit up with the flash, it would be completely black. We'll go to the next one. This was a different idea. I love using props that are basically in there. And I just grabbed her and said, let's sit you on this crate. And again, this was shot at f4. You can see the background is nicely out of focus, even for f4. Because I'm shooting at 110mm, it falls off nicely. If I went back even further and shot at 200, that background would be really nice and out of focus. So you do get really nice out of focus rendering with the f4 versions of these lenses, and that's what people have to understand. You don't need the 2.8 to get that out of focus lens. Delta Dave said, how do you decide the model to place the light? Well, what I look at, Dave, is I'll look at where the natural light is falling in the alleyway, and I'll try and work with that. So that's how I'll work it out. The sun, if you're looking at this image, for example, the sun naturally was over, well, it's way above her. There's not much natural light coming in here, but the light was actually coming off here, hitting the wall and bouncing back a little bit like that. So that gives me the determination that I want to put the flash on that side to give that fill. So I always try and match the way the natural surrounding light is. And that helps me to work out where I'm going to stick the flash. So I'll look usually for shadows and see where they're naturally falling. They nearly are always natural shadows. And you can see where, you know, the light's falling. And that determines where you'll put your flash. Remember, you should have that light coming from the same angle, not the opposite side. You can do a bit of fill from the other side, but your main lighting should come from the same light as that's coming in. Again, I just wanted to have that natural look here, just sitting there. And I love it when they stare directly at the camera. Very important too, if you can, to try and leave the mouth a little bit open, or open, not clench lips, because if you clench the lips tight together, it shows tension. It's just nice to have the lips open, and always be conscious of fingers. I always tell my models ballerina fingers. So, you know, tell them to open up their fingers and relax them, to be really open and gentle with their fingers. We'll go to another one, which again is colour overload, but this is the great thing about working in Melbourne. This is all the same laneways, by the way. So this was just around the corner, and I just had her lean against this area. And again, it's got that real grungy look about it. I love the detail and the shadows through here. This is where the Sonys just kick ass. I mean, basically, you know, that the shadow detail that you can get in these Sony sensors, this was the A7R2, you know, it's just amazing. And I just love how you can pull that shadow detail out there. So I did expose for that to make sure I had enough detail that I could get back. And then again, filled her with flash off this left-hand side through here. She was just off camera with that diffuser that just gave her that little bit of light that came in through here. But again, it's got that lovely feel about it. It's got that, you know, street sort of look about it. It's quite contrasty. You know, and again, that's just the type of look that I love doing. And she stands out enough on this against that background, which, you know, I really, really liked. And even though she's got these black pants on, you've got that highlight that comes through here that the flash is giving as well. So, you know, it's a really interesting thing that you've got to have that highlight to show sort of separation from that background, particularly because she was wearing black. Hi-Fi Energy said A7R2 or A9 for model shoots. If I was doing this sort of work, I'll probably still use my A7R II, only because of the resolution and stuff and the dynamic range that I could pull out of it. I may use a mix of both though, I'm not sure yet, but I'll probably still, for this type of stuff, I'll still be using the A7R II. Let me go to the next image for you. This was just over the road. I shot this one against this lovely steel background that is against the wall, and I just love the grunginess too about this as well. I just got her to hold a dress out just to give a little bit of shape here. This was natural light, so there's no flash used here at all. So this was just the sun streaming down against her, against this wall. But you know, it's just a lovely type of image. And again, I've just got it so that I've taken the saturation out of this again. The vibrance has been brought right down, and the saturation has been brought down. The vibrance went down to -42 on this, and I bumped the clarity up to 16. So I'll pull this over so you can sort of see the settings that I've done on this. Yeah, if you look here, the highlights are -11. The exposure's just been taken down a little bit. The shadows are +43 because it was, I remember I always underexpose a little bit and I can bring that back up. The whites have been added and the blacks have also been taken way up. And I've added heaps of clarity, taken the vibrance away and added, kept the saturation the way it is. So that's given you an idea about the settings that I've used to get that grungy type look. Adding the clarity on that has added that real grungy look to that image, which, you know, which is what I love. And the same girl, I wanted to show, I do use natural light quite often, and this is what I did here. I had her lean against the wall that was next to her, which was just this creamy color wall. And this was shot with the 55 Zeiss. I love that lens, a 1.8, and I've shot it at 1.8, 1/400th of a second, and it's ISO 100. And I've had her lean against that wall, and this is the natural reflection of her, of the wall bouncing back into her face. So this is a complete daylight image as well, and I love the way the eyes are so sharp and stuff, and that lens is so sharp, and you can see that when you look at her eyes. I used eye detect to get her lens in focus, and the eyes just pop out. That lens is so sharp, it's just incredible. And again, it just shows what you can just do by using just daylight in these situations. I did tilt her head a little bit towards the wall, and that's given her that lovely shape of her going in there. But again, like I said, she's backlit a little bit here, but it's also all of that light bouncing off that wall directly into her face. You know, which is given her a lovely type look as well. Next one I thought I'd show you, which was a bit funny, because at the same shoot, this is what happened. I don't know what was going on. They were just walking around Melbourne, these guys, and I immediately just grabbed them and said, can I have a quick shoot? And I loved it because I was attacked by stormtroopers. So I got, my wife actually took this shot. And it seems, it's just funny because I just loved it. And those guys had a ball actually shooting this with me. And this was shot with the 2470 f4 lens on another camera. So it's a 2470 f4 and it was shot at 24mm. Again, this is the f4 version, not the GM version of the lens. Again, that lens is really sharp, so I'm actually quite happy with it. I just don't use it that much, but yeah, it's just a good image, and I had a bit of fun with it. I might post this one or something up on the when I put the video up. Another image too. This was a really interesting image because this one was quite challenging in itself, because this is quite technical to get this shot to actually work. So this was shot in one shot. This isn't a composite shot, so it was actually done in one shot. And how I did this was, there was actually a flash that was just off camera that was basically over this area, just out of the way. Well, it's at head height, with the diffusion on again, with the grid on again, just lighting her up in that section through here. So that's how that worked. Now, if you'll notice, this is shot at 1/4 of a second. At 5.6 ISO 100, and this is shot with a 2470 f4. So this was shot at 1/4 of a second. So the thing that's stopping the motion here is the flash has stopped Grace, the model. So what I've done is you have to have your camera on a tripod to get this successfully. So I've got my camera on a tripod directly more or less in front of Grace so that there's no movement. And I've got the camera set on timer so that when I click the shutter, it will go off on the timer because any movement will actually affect this shot. So the movement is caused by that slow shutter speed of 1/4 of a second, and the flash freezes Grace. And I just love that image. That's so beautiful, and I think it's great. And this is something you probably should try and do. You can do this with moving trains. You can do it with all other things. Oh, I'm Brown. Thank you so much. Thanks, Jim. That's not Jim, is it? No, it's Tony. Thanks, Tony. I really appreciate that. So, you know, that's a great thing that you can do. And I've just got a hole in this balloon. It's just for a bit of fun. You can see the movement in the people. See how the people have moved. So that gives you that movement there. They've moved in that split second as well. So there is movement there. But I'm not worried about that because the only thing I'm worried about is that Grace is rock steady. And again, this is how I've done waterfall images where I've shot the waterfall moving and the couple or the two girls, the models, stay still. And that's how you can actually do that. So, you know, it's worthwhile trying and give it a go because remember, you want your images to look different and you want to try something a little bit different. And I love the way the front of the train is disappearing there. You know, that's something, and you know, you give it a go. Keith said, "I'm going to steal his brain for a day." So you know, have a think about doing something like that, guys. Think outside the box. You know, because it's interesting to do something like that. And again, I've exposed for the ambient here because it was very, very dark. And I was very lucky that it did just rain because I love that look of that reflection that you're getting in this area all through the image, which, you know, is really beautiful. We then just moved over to the GPO, which is across the street basically from this. And I just did a couple of images where I wanted to get a fashion look walking down this is our Melbourne GPO. And I've got those beautiful lights, and I love the shape of, you know, the arches coming over the head here. And basically, there's two flashes used here. I've got a flash that was just behind these pillars that are lighting up there to give a bit of separation, and you can sort of see it on her arm through here. And I also had a flash that was from the front as well, and that's given her that light from the front. Because remember, again, I've exposed for the ambient first, and then I've added the fill flash later on. And I don't even care about the guys being in the background because, like I said, this is just meant to be fashion in the city. So, you know, it's just another sort of interesting shot. I did this with two girls, and you can see there's another shot there. Again, you can see, and I love the shape of that, but this is personal again. I love the shape, the light that you can sort of see reflecting from that flash that's outside here coming off her face. I just love that separation that it actually gives. And again, I've made this quite flat, so it has got a flat look about it. But again, it's an image that, you know, I really like doing, and I love the way that it looks. So if you have any questions about any of those guys, let me know down below. You know, if you've got any questions about how it was done or whatever, you know, leave some questions down below, and I can get back to you about that. But let's go to questions because we'll see what we've got for the next few minutes. Oreo said, do you use octagonal softbox for this full figure shots too? Yep, yeah, I do actually. I have got the long rectangular ones. I've got two of those, but I don't use them very much. And I've found the directional light from that octagonal light is pretty good, that I can light up the whole body with it. And I've got to be careful though, because you can see, if you look closely, you can see where the fall off is, it's there. So it's more directional. So if you look up, it's sort of lit from that area on, and you can see that the legs are sort of a bit darker. I didn't want that area to light up, so that's the deliberate reason I didn't do that. If I wanted to take enough gear, I have got those ones that are shaped like that, and they have got grids on them as well, and I could have taken that, and that would have lit up her whole body. But again, there's a risk, the longer that is, that it will light up this section as well. And like, I didn't want that to happen, so I was willing to live with that fall off on her legs through here to make sure that I didn't light up that background as well. Oh, I wasn't even talking. I didn't show you. I'll just take it back because I wanted to show you that. Let me just come back here. You can see the fall off is actually... Sorry about that, I was on the wrong thing on the screen. You can see the fall offs there. I could use those long reflectors like that, but it would light up that section and probably there. I have got those, but I didn't use it. That's basically why. So let me go back to here. Let's see what else people are saying. Most people are saying it was nice work. Thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate that. And the guys giving donations, thank you so much. I really appreciate that, guys. Keith has said, oh no, more delay for the Sigma. Yeah, I saw that today, that the Sigma FE lenses will be delayed till Q3, 4. So it looks like they're going to be a while, guys, if you're waiting on those Sigma lenses. I'm not sure why, but clearly, and you know what, I'll probably think it'll end up going to Q4. Delta Dave said, do you need permits on these shoots? No, you don't need any permits walking around Melbourne, Dave. We're lucky here in Australia. You don't need really permits for anything like this around the streets. If you go into anything private, you do. But you don't need permits to shoot anywhere around Melbourne, no. No, you don't, which is great, because I've seen how bad it can be in America and LA and places like that, which gets crazy. No, we're fine. Jim said, good evening. So good evening, Jim. Ben said, do you usually shoot at an upwards angle for fashion shots? Yes, I try and get fairly low, Ben, for that. So it's usually quite important if you're shooting fashion that you do get quite low, because you want to make the girls tend to be taller. There's two things that you need to do here. If you're dealing with plus size girls, so larger girls, you need to be shooting high and have them looking up at you, because you need to extend the chin and that needs to come up. If you're dealing with these lovely slim girls like that, you actually should shoot fairly low. You can go down to sort of waist, even lower sometimes, but you do need to be shooting more lower because you want that look. Yeah, so you do have to try and get down low. Keith said, permit on shooting public streets? No way. Yep, we don't have to get permits. Hi-Fi Energy Research said, David, a wedding workshop instructor using Nikon said that you should use pro gear that if dropped will still be usable. What do you think of this as pertaining to Sony gear? I've dropped my Sony gear a number of times, and I had an issue one time with a flash that did break. That was because of the plastic end to it, though, so they are a bit fragile, those Sony flashes. The cameras I've dropped a few times and not had any issues. I think it's strong enough, honestly. Again, you know what? You should have backup. So I think that's a bit of an irrelevant statement. That's just people being Nikon and Canon again. If you did drop something and it breaks, well, surely you should have a backup gear to cover you anyway. I wouldn't use any gear because I was afraid of it breaking. I'd just be using it. And I've always got backup gear in case if something like that happens. So, you know, I think that bit about Sony's not good enough for professional work is crap, to be honest, and it annoys the hell out of me. RA83SH said hi from Brazil. Jim said, I remember Kuyong was piping hot when I lived in that great country. It does get really hot in summer, Jim. Really hot. I like the heat though, but it's winter here now at the moment, so it's quite cold. I just got the future of photography or video. What do you think? I think you need both, and that's one of the main reasons why I went to Fusion. I think you're kidding yourself, guys, if you think you can just do photography for the next 10 years. I think it's very, very important that you use the video aspect of it, because that's one side that people struggle with and it's harder. Like I said, when I go through my business stuff, I'll start talking about that more, but it has helped my business grow that I'm shooting video as well as stills, and it's something I really think all of you should be concentrating on if you want to move ahead. There's so much competition in the photography side of it. There's nowhere near the same competition in the video side of it because it's a lot harder. And I think that's one plus. And if you can offer both, if you can offer stills and video, you become very hireable. So it's something I really think you all should try and move into. There's a big learning curve, but it's worth it. Imda Brown said, so that's why my wife always wants me to take shots of the camera over our heads. And I said, like, it's important if you are larger. Look, even me, if you have a double chin at all, pull your neck out. And I do always tell the girls to sort of pull their neck out and down. Even the slim girls, I'll be telling them to do that, because you want to make this neck a lot longer, and that's really important as well. These are really important things to make girls particularly look good, and the way that you angle them. I'll do a posing video one day so I can show you all. Mike said he's saying that is the only argument they think of that have left. He's talking about other things that have gone there. Someone's asked me to talk about it a bit more video. I will if you go through my other videos. I'll talk about that when I go onto my business stuff. You'll see that there. We just haven't got the time at this stage. Ben said, is that your wife in the profile picture? She's gorgeous. No, no, it's not actually. That's my daughter. So that's Bianca. Yeah, I actually, yeah, she's adorable. I love Bianca. I love her to death. Yeah, she's my daughter, Bianca. High Energy Research said, David, I have the A6300 and the RX100 Mark II. You probably recommend a full frame and my A6300 for weddings. I don't care for my RX10 compared to my A6300. Look, you don't have to have a full frame at all, and don't think that you do have to have a full frame at all. Like I said, there's no problem. Fuji, the XT2s will be fantastic. The A6300s, A6500s are fantastic. You don't have to have a full frame camera, and I use my A6300 and A6500 for weddings all the time. It's just that I do have full frame, and I do love that full frame look if you're trying to get depth of field. So that can be an issue, and the recovery clearly and the noise is better in those cameras. So if you're starting to get into high-end weddings, and I do shoot a lot of high-end weddings, I'm more priced at the higher to the top here. So I do shoot full frame, but I am still using my A6300. If I was starting out though, I'd have no hesitation in using APS-C cameras to shoot weddings. And clearly, if you want to, like I've seen a lot of photographers shoot using the Fuji system, the XT2. So, you can do that. You would have to get over that thing of people looking at you strange. And I get that even with the Sony cameras even now with the A7R2s and that. They look at you, oh, you're not carrying around a Nikon. Or I don't care about that. My work speaks for itself. But if you're not 100% confident, you may find that could be an issue if you're dealing and starting out in weddings. Clearly, the full frame has advantages. The lenses are the width that you actually get them. So if you want wide-angle lenses, it's far easier to get those if you're dealing with full frames. But if you want reach, well, then clearly it's easier if you've got an APS-C camera because you get that extra crop factor involved. So there's benefits for both, and that's why I always use both. But the full frame definitely has advantage in noise and your depth of field. Keith said, hit that thumbs up, people. This is the best video on YouTube right now. Thanks so much, Keith. I really appreciate you saying that. What else? Mike said, nope, I meant Canon guys aying Sony 8 Pro. I know. Look, just ignore those Canon and Nikon photographers saying Canons ain't snow. They're just jealous. They can see the writing on the wall and it terrifies the living daylights out of them. So, yeah, just ignore that aspect of it. Just make your work do the talking. The camera really has nothing to do with it. It's this that makes the difference. It's the person behind it. So if people start saying that, have a look at their work and you can guarantee they won't have good work because decent photographers just don't care about that sort of stuff. Delta Dave said, yes, posing video. Yeah, I'll do that. I will do that. I'll try and do that fairly soon for you guys. Oreo said, I'm at a wedding I shot last Saturday. I shot quite a number of pictures with the A6500 and they came out great. At ISO 100, they are practically undistinguishable from the full frame. And they are. You wouldn't tell the difference. I'm telling you. It's just if you get into low light stuff, the full frame can be advantageous if you're dealing with really low light stuff. That's why I like to have both. I'm DeBrown said, now that you have the A9, how often do you use the A7R2? I have to be honest, it is hard to go back with the focusing to the A7R2, but I still can't beat the file size with the A7R2. That thing for cropping in is still pretty amazing, and the recovery is still better. So I'm still going to be using both, and I think I still will use both for the next probably couple of years. I think they're both amazing cameras. I can't believe what the A9R will look like. I mean, that's just going to be incredible. I have sold my two A7 IIs. I've sold them already in preparation for what might come ahead. I'm seriously thinking about getting the A7 III when it's released, but I've got a bit of an itch to try the GH5. I'd love to try that for video as well. I'd love to try the 4K 60p. So I'm trying not to buy it with the money that I've got sitting there from what I've sold for my A7 IIs. But it's pretty hard because I'm not certain what the A7 III is going to give us. But if I buy the GH5 and then the A7 III is then announced and it's got all the features I need, I'm going to kick myself in the foot because I can't afford to buy that and another camera. But the video features of the GH5 interest me, and that 60p, 4K 60p really do. And I don't think, because I do Fusion, I don't think I can afford to get the A7 A9R or whatever that will be, because I just don't do enough of it. I need cameras that can do both, and I don't know if I can justify spending another 7,000 Australian to get an A9S or whatever the new version of that is. I can get the GH5 here for just around about 3.7 with the 24 to 35 or whatever it is lens included. So I am thinking about doing that. It doesn't mean I'm ditching Sony. I just love it for the video aspect of it. Let's have a look at what people are saying as well. Fuji doesn't even make full frame cameras and they do great, and that's true, they don't. Hi-Fi Energy said, David, with only one camera body, A6300, do you think I could get into modelling portraiture to raise money to get another camera? It's a bit hard with only one body, though. You've got to be careful because if you're doing shoots for work, you have to have a second body. I'd be trying to save up and get a second one, an A6500 or something like that, to at least have a backup body in case if you need it, because I don't think one's enough. Casper said it will be A-mount A77 III. Mike said, David, to put those two posts together, what I was saying is that the Canicon saying Sony ain't pro is the only argument they have left, and it is. And that's the thing. They'll always come up with an argument. They used to say it was the dual card slots. Now the A9 has that. They're now saying it's lenses. I mean, clearly, Sony have enough lenses unless you're dealing with sport, and that will be addressed soon. So they'll come up with some other thing that they're saying, that they will continually have another comment about what Sony aren't doing right. I just ignore them. They're just trolls. RA said 55mm Zeiss enough to start wedding photography. No, the 55 is amazing, but you can't just go with, he's saying the 16 to 35 f4 and the 55 good enough. Borderline, remember you need backup lenses too, because you can't just have those lenses. You've got to have backups in case if something goes wrong with that, because if your 16 to 35 fails or something like that, you've got nothing then to do wide angle shots and you'd be in real trouble. The same if your 55 went, you've got nothing either. You nearly need a full range. I have the 7200, but I don't use it very often. It's there, but I do use it for compression. But I have multiple backups. Have a look at my other videos that talk about wedding lenses for weddings, which is further back in my feed, and you'll find that if you want to know that. But you definitely need multiple backups of lenses in case if something goes wrong. I'd hate to be in a wedding and have an issue. I dropped I think it was a 2470, and broke that lens. It was the Nikon version that I did that to, and it broke it. Luckily, I had other lenses that I could go to, but if I didn't and I had nothing in that wide angle lens, I would have been screwed for the day. So you've got to, just for your own confidence and your own sanity, to have things to back you up in case if you have issues, guys. So never go into a wedding, any paid shot without having multiple backups. Mike said, I don't care what they think. I shot Canon for 40 plus years and never looked back after switching. And I was the same. Like, I was Nikon for 20 years, and I've never looked back either. Mike said, absolutely, the A6300 is perfect for that. He's talking about the weddings. And it's perfect if you want to shoot weddings with that. Just make sure you have a backup. Someone else, Keith is saying Fuji doesn't have a medium format. It has medium format. Yes, it does now with that GFX 50. I haven't tried, someone asked if I've tried the 85 Gold Master, and I haven't because I don't want it. To be honest, I'm happy with the Batis 85. I love that lens. I love the weight. It's stabilized. If I was buying a new lens now and I had to buy one, I'd buy the 85 1.8. Because it's $600 or some ridiculous figure. But because I've got the Batis, I'm going to keep that, and I love that. I love that lens, and I love the feel of it. It looks beautiful on the camera, feels beautiful in my hand. The results are fantastic. It's weather sealed and it's stabilized, so I can use that on my A6300 if I want to. 18 to 105 will be a good backup. Yes, and it is. That's a really good lens, and I use that all the time. I love that lens, especially for travel and stuff like that. I use that lens continually for travel. It's one of my favorite lenses, actually. That with the 24 1.8. I adore the 24 1.8. David said, 85mm G Master is an amazing lens. I own it myself and use it on the A7 II. Yeah, it is. Look, and the bokeh in that lens is definitely better than what I'm getting with my Batis, but my clients never notice that. They're not pixel peeping like we do, but clearly it is a better lens, but I just don't want the weight, David. I just don't want to be carrying around that extra weight on these cameras anymore, and that's the thing for me. It's all about weight now and movement and moving quickly, and that's the reason why I've got none of the G Master lenses. That's more the reason too why I've gone primes for nearly everything. Hi Phone, said, David, do you recommend getting into paid model shoots? Well, yes, I do. And like I said, I'm in a unique position. 99% of my shoots that I do are paid, so I do very little free shoots. I know most YouTube photographers don't do that. They'll just do free shoots so they can post it. Well, most of mine actually are paid shoots. So the shoots that you're seeing, they've paid for those images. Although a lot of the times when you see it on YouTube, they're unedited, so you're not seeing the final images that I deliver to the models. But yeah, so 90% of my images are paid. So like I said, I want to make money in this industry. So yes, but having said that, to start off, it's hard to charge if you're only just starting off. So you do have to start off somewhere, and I'm going to be talking about that in the series that I'm doing about building my a wedding photography and portrait business. So I will discuss that in detail once we get into that. But you have to start somewhere, so you may have to trade for print shoots and stuff like that early on to get work, to build up your profile and your portfolio. Mike said, look into the Samyang XP85 1.2. Yeah, and it would be. Look, I mean, that'd be beautiful. 1.2 would be incredible. I'd even love to try the Canon 1.2 as well, the 85. Because I always do shoot wide open, and clearly they would be amazing lenses. Like I said, it all comes down to weight for me, and because I'm shooting so much fusion as well, the Batis is great because I can stick it on a lens and it's stabilized and it's nice and light. I can stick it on a gimbal if I need to, and it's nice and light. So they're some of the things that matter to me. Like I said, the main lenses that I'm using now are the 24 1.8 on the A6500, because I just adore that lens. On the full frame, I'm using the 35 1.4. I love that focal length. 35mm is my favorite focal length. So I use that all the time, the 35 1.4 Sony. And then I'll use the Batis 85, and I've also got the 55 too as well. And I'll use the 70-200 if I want the compression. So they're the main lenses that I'm doing it. Someone's asked if I can link your fusion work. Just check my videos. You'll see them all the time on YouTube. They're always there. That's the best place to see the fusion work. So last questions, guys, because it's just about lunchtime. Well, it's 11:13 here. It's just about coffee time. The Canon 82 fringes like hell. Well, there you go. So they're saying it's not as sharp as the Sammy. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for that, because that's an interesting statement as well. So Keith is saying he's got to go. Well, I'm going in a minute too, Keith. So thanks for watching, mate, and I'll see you hopefully next time at the same time. So I'll be doing this at this time every week. So hopefully you can log in at the same time next week. Any last questions, guys, before we go? Delta Dave said, I think the A77 III will be Sony's first QXD camera, and that could be true. I'm surprised they didn't put it in the A9, actually. It's going to be interesting to see. Perhaps the A7 III may have QXD cards. It'll be interesting. Might have one. I still don't think the A7 III will have the dual card slots. I just don't think they're going to do that. I think that's only going to be kept for the A9, but we're waiting. That's why I'm hesitant sort of at this stage to jump, and I'm just waiting to see what actually happens. Casper said, I have the 85 Gold Master. Just wanted to know if you've tried it. It's a fabulous lens. Yes, and it is. And like I said, everything I've heard about that lens, it's amazing. It's just the weight puts me off. If I hadn't got the baddest, then I'd have to make a decision. But you know what? I've heard great things about the 85 1.8 too. The Sony one is meant to be really, really good. Someone said, have you tried the 90 macro? Yes, and I have tried that, and it is super sharp. One of the sharpest lenses Sony produces, actually. I never bought it because it's just too big for what I want, and I use that 35mm one, the APS-C one, and that's ample for what I actually use. So I haven't used the 90, but I have tried it, yes, and it was really, really good. Hussein's here. Hi, how are you, mate? If you've just joined in, you'll be able to catch this once. It's put up straight away afterwards again anyway. We can go on that. So are there any last questions, guys, before we finish? Please give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe because you'll get all these live videos on notification to you. Mike said the 90 is amazingly sharp. Yes, it is. He said I sold the Sony because I didn't like the bokeh. Yeah, and that's interesting. I know a lot of people use that for portraits though, but yeah, it is very, very sharp, that 90mm macro. Like I said, it's just too big for what I want to be lugging around. But having said that, you know, if Sony released a 135 f2 or something, I'd be tempted to buy that. BMC Metalworks is just leaving. Thanks, mate. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, the 135 could be a really interesting focal length because I do love that focal length size. So Mike's just saying goodbye. Well, we might leave it there, guys, for the day now. I think coffee is calling me. Susie up the back is getting a bit bored just sitting there. Poor Susie, sitting in the corner on her own. So any last questions before we finish for the day? If not, stay tuned. I'll try to get back onto the business stuff next week, as long as my business isn't going too crazy. Someone's asked if anything on the A7 III yet. No, I think they're talking about, the rumours are about October, but it's probably going to be released late this year or early next year. That's why I'm sort of thinking about the Panasonic GH5, just to have a go at it for the video. Look at the Sammy 135 II. Does that focus well with the adapter though, Mike? Just let me know whether that focuses nice with the or well with the adapters. All right, guys. Well, I think we're going to call it a day, and I'll see you next week. Enjoy the rest of your evening and have a good sleep for most of you in the US and Europe. Clearly, for me, it's just about lunchtime, so I'll be having a nice snack in a minute and going to get a coffee, my usual morning coffee. So thanks so much, guys, for tuning in, and I'll see you next week. I really appreciate you guys following me. Thanks for the guys that gave me a donation. I really appreciate that too. And I'll see you again soon for another video. So bye, guys. Some are saying bye, Susie. See you, everyone. Catch ya. Bye.